In this video, I really just want to ask the honest question. The honest, simple question, why are there some dudes out there that like despise the braid to leader, whether that's braid to fluorocarbon or braid to mono? Because there's like a cult, there's like a group out there that just absolutely despise it and they hate it. And so my question is simply like, why? Like I just want to know why. If you're one of those guys, like I'm not trying to like come against you, but I just want to know what your honest answer is. Why do you not like the braid to mono or the braid to fluoro? Because to me, there's some really big advantages when it comes to using a braid to leader. And in this video, I want to talk about those. But please, if you're one of those guys, let me know down below. I just want to know why. That's all. All right. This video is brought to you by my apparel company, Fin Fishing. Right now, if you buy one of my USA made sun shirts, which is one of the only ones out there on the market made in the US, not overseas, you can get a free Fin Fishing rod glove. This is a neoprene rod glove. It does not get hung in every single hook, or if your hooks do get in it, they pop right out. So it's very nice to have when you have a rod locker. I have a lot of different colors so that you can kind of organize your rods as well as protect your rods. So all you got to do is add the sun shirt to cart. Add the rod glove you like to cart. It will automatically discount at checkout. I am only running this sale for a few more days up until the end of April 2024. So take advantage of it down below. All right, let's talk about a few big advantages of using braid to a leader, whether that's fluoro or mono. Now, the first thing that I want to say is that there are definitely a number of techniques where I do not like to use braid to mono or fluoro, or that I think it's actually a bad thing to use braid to mono or fluoro. For example, one would be a jerk bait. You know, I am a guy who likes to fish a jerk bait on a bait caster, so this doesn't really affect me much because I usually use just fluorocarbon on my bait cast, on my jerk bait caster anyways. But even if you like to use, you know, mono or fluoro with your spinning rod in a jerk bait, I completely understand that. Like, that makes sense. Another one would be a crankbait, you know, like a deep diving crankbait. It doesn't really make sense to use braid to mono or braid to fluoro in those situations. But there are some major advantages when it comes to using braid to fluoro with some other techniques. Now, I want to talk about a few of those right now. Now, the first one that I can think about is like spinning rods. Any type of spinning rod application out there, I truly believe that you will be way better off most of the time by using a braid to fluoro or braid to mono leader. And the big thing is line twist. We all know how annoying line twist can be when it comes to a spinning rod. Like, that is the number one reason, especially if you're out there catching a lot of fish. If you are catching a lot of fish and your drag is singing all day, that is what twists your line a lot of times. So if you're catching a lot of fish, to me, like, using braid to fluoro, it'll just change your life. I really, really believe that. Now, the one thing that kind of sucks with using those lighter line braids is that you will get wind knots from time to time. But to me, a wind knot every now and then will way beat out just the frustration it is to use straight fluoro or straight mono on a spinning rod. And so when it comes to line twist, that is. Now, to me, I like to use a 4-carrier braid on my spinning rods because I think that you get a whole lot less wind knots as opposed to some of those higher carrier braids. But to me, it's a huge advantage when it comes to using a spinning rod just because of the line twist, okay? And now I want to go on to the next one I wrote down here is cost. Cost. You know, we know that braid, for the most part, costs more than other lines, especially your monofilaments. It doesn't always cost more than fluorocarbon. So if you're using straight fluorocarbon, you know, you have to replace that a lot. For example, I like to use braid on my topwater rods. You know, I will use a braid to a monofilament leader that is about a foot or 2 foot at most. And that, I have had the same braid on my topwater rods for over 2 years. And I guarantee I will go through a third year. If I was using straight mono, you know, in that situation, I probably would have replaced that at least 3 times a year for almost 3 years. So there's a huge cost savings there when it comes to the braid. As long as there's enough braid on that spool, I don't really see the point to actually change it out. And the same thing applies to my spinning rods. The exact same thing when it comes to cost. So that's a huge advantage. Now there are probably a couple of you saying, hey Tyler, you don't want to fish jerk baits on a braid to fluoro or crankbaits on a braid to fluoro. Why do you use it on a topwater? And the biggest reason is a topwater is a floating bait, right? A topwater is on top of the water. And so it does not impact that bait in any way. And the thing about braid is braid does tend to float, or at least it'll stay higher in the water column longer. And if you're using baits like jerk baits and crankbaits that have a bill that want to go down, you will impact the way that bait is working because of the way that braid floats. I'm not necessarily using braid. I don't necessarily not want to use braid to fluoro because of like the give that you lose or anything like that. It's because it keeps those baits up and it changes those baits a lot. Now with a topwater, it stays on the surface. So there's really no big deal there. The biggest thing you can do when it comes to using braid to fluoro or mono, and I should talk about this, is make sure you have the right equipment. When you have a braid main line, it's gonna take a lot of the give out of your, when you go to set the hook, when a fish is fighting. So you need to have more rods that have more give to them. I like to use a lot more parabolic, a little bit more softer rods when I'm using any kind of braid to fluoro. I use a lot of softer rods with my spinning rods and in my topwater rods. The only one that I don't use a very soft rod is like when I am flipping and pitching. Now over the last couple of years, I have really liked flipping and pitching braid to fluorocarbon. And there's one of the biggest advantages is I can use a smaller rod. Like I used to flip and pitch with like a 7-foot, 6-inch heavy power rod. That's a fast action. And I will still use that exact same rod if I am flipping like deeper wood or even docks. Anytime I'm fishing around like wood, I do like straight fluoro because I don't like to bring that knot through all that wood. That to me, I feel like is not good. Not to mention braid will actually get caught in wood itself. Like it will dig into wood. So that's another reason you could lose them. So if like for example, I was just flipping and pitching on a lake that had like 10 and 12 foot tall cedar trees, and I was using straight fluorocarbon for that situation. Okay, so that makes sense. But when I am flipping and pitching more like grass or anything like that, man, braid to fluoro is so nice because I can use a smaller rod. I can do it all day without having a little bit bigger rod, and it's really nice. There's a direct connection. Now, the exact same thing what I was just talking about, I do use a rod that is a little bit softer. It's not a parabolic bending rod. It's more of like a moderate fast action rod. It's labeled as a fast action, but it really bends more like a moderate fast action rod. So the same kind of principle applies. So I don't know, guys. To me, there is a lot of advantages to using braid to fluoro in a lot of different situations. And I'm just curious to know why you don't use them. There's one thing that I hear a lot of guys say, and that's because they don't want another piece of connection, like they don't want another knot that could potentially fail. If you're putting another knot in your line and you already have one, that's a weak point. And I'm gonna be 100% honest with you, that's just not true. And the reason being is that if you know how to tie a really good braid to fluoro knot, for example, the FG knot, it is as strong, if not stronger, than it's not stronger. It's just as strong as your fluorocarbon leader may be. And I actually tested this. I did a whole test all about this over on BassFishingHQ. I will leave that video linked right here if you guys want to watch that, where you can see a braid to leader knot, an FG knot is just as strong as using just straight line, whatever it may be. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you tomorrow.